On the biggest stage in the world, FanDuel is changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore. With FanDuel Super Sub, if your player's subbed out, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves the match, your bet continues on with the substitute. So you're still in it until the final whistle. Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
21 plus select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DCKYWY. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat. Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050. Massachusetts. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 877-770-7867. Louisiana.
Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And I want to turn back to the Iran war from a political standpoint as well as an economic standpoint. We've got two of the best, John McLaughlin, ace pollster, CEO of McLaughlin and Associates, and Steve Forbes, the great Steve Forbes, chairman, editor, chief Forbes Media. And Steve's latest book, Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. Start with you, Steve. So what you've read so far about this memo of understanding, what do you make of it? Do you think it's doable? Do you think it's workable?
I take the Missouri attitude, their motto, show me. And we cannot forget, Larry, that the whole basis of this regime is imposing their weird ideology on the world. They brought about the deaths of at least 2,000 Americans, hundreds of thousands of other deaths, terror around the world, without being a nuclear power. Their whole existence is dependent on that weird ideology. That is not going to change. And so maybe we can get the dust out. That's good. But if that regime is in there, ultimately it's going to be trouble. And so I'll say it again. I wish we'd never had this ceasefire. The war would have been over by now. But going forward, let's have no illusions. And I wish the president would stop saying, it's around the corner. Maybe it is this time. But I think the voters have very serious questions about whether we really knew what we were doing going in, and that's too bad. I think that means the president at some point's got to do another speech about what we're doing over there. And the Americans will respond if the speech is done well. We're patriotic people, despite what the left is doing.
John McLaughlin, what do your polling numbers show about the war?
Well, in the most recent poll we did about do they support or oppose the president stopping Iran from getting nuclear weapons, they support 48-41. What was interesting last month when we asked, should we finish the job, 60-30, they said we should finish the job. And they're no, at the time it was more military action than it was with the negotiations now. So Americans don't like to go to war. And a lot of the media polls that are extremely biased, that are trying to undermine the president, because a lot of those outlets repeat whatever Iranian state media says, those polls have been, do you want to use military action, et cetera? Americans don't like to do that. But when they understand what the goals are, like when the president did his April 1st speech to the nation, people that watched that fully supported because they understood it was about stopping Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And as Steve said, these are not rational people that we're used to. These are people that are ideologues who have a religious ideology that, if they had a nuclear weapon, what they've proven is they would use it. And Americans thought in our last poll, 61-20, that if Iran had nuclear weapons, they would use it against the United States and our allies. So they support the president, and the key is verification.
But no question. But I want to come back to the political side. Is it the price of gasoline that's the tip of the spear, public opinion, or is it the actual outcome of the war, or is it both? I mean, I had Newt Gingrich on. Newt and I were talking about this last night. Now, he's argued, and Newt's a very smart guy. Newt's arguing that if you can get gasoline down to $3.50 or less, that's a huge win for the GOP, for the president and the Republican Party in the midterms. Now, I think we're going to get that. I mean, half the states have a $3 handle anyway, and energy's coming way down. WTI, what was it yesterday? $83, $84, down over 20% for heaven's sakes. Probably come down more. Ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz. So is it the gasoline price, John, that's the key, or not?
Well, it's a big factor in that poll we did, the most recent poll we did that we posted. Tea Party Patriots paid for a question: should we keep the Strait of Hormuz open? 71-16. American voters said absolutely. So particularly with the independent voters are not about what you've done for me in the past. They're about what are you going to do for me tomorrow? And they're still trying to recover from 4 years of the hangover of Biden-Harris inflation. So what we're worried about now is, although I had Trump with a 48 approval, 47 disapprove, and it's 1,000 likely voters modeled after a typical turnout, the Republicans were only at 42% of the generic ballot for Congress. Democrats were at 46, and the independents were going against us 2-1. So, they're deciding that, in New Jersey yesterday, I paid $4 a gallon of gas, which was down from nearly $5. So it's going down. But, the one thing I said to the president is a lot of us have friends and family over in that theater. And, they're risking their lives. The president is the commander in chief. He needs to be thanking the brave men and women who are putting, they're sacrificing every day for us over there. And he understands, because he doesn't like using ground troops. He doesn't want to get us caught in a forever conflict. But they're giving him the ability to run the blockade, to do the economic sanctions that is bringing Iran to the table right now. But as commander in chief, he has to thank those troops every day, because what they're doing for our country is amazing.
Steve Forbes, so the generic ballot is running against the GOP. What should be done? What can be done?
Well, on the war, I think the people want to convey the feeling that we're actually have a real plan, that we know what we're doing. And that's not happened so far. I'm being blunt about it. We got a lot of this that's going to end in 2 weeks kind of thing. Prosperity's just around the corner. And this, I think, underscores the need, and I know our friends in Congress don't want to hear it, the need for a reconciliation bill with tax cuts in it. And if they don't want to put real tax cuts in it, make it a big campaign issue and have people out there like this waitress that Jason Smith talked about in Missouri, who could pay her rent for the next year with her 3 kids, single mother, because of tips and overtime changes. And the Republicans have to say, this is what we're going to do more of, reelect us. We have to have something to put on the table. And right now, we don't really have something new to put on the table. It's like a restaurant. Great meal yesterday. What are you serving us today and tomorrow? That's what the voters are looking for. And I don't understand why Treasury, Scott Bessent, great guy, White House, great people, why they don't index capital gains right now, especially for housing, and do something that voters say, hey, some good stuff is coming, and they're already starting to put it on the table. We need that.
Yeah, we do need that. You're 1,000% right. You and I have been talking, it's been probably 2 months now. We've been talking about this in various media. And so, we had Kevin Cramer on, Senator Cramer, last night. He's a good guy, personally. He's a good guy.
Is.
Okay, lovely man. But you could see how defensive he is when we talked about the need for a reconciliation bill. In other words, what you just said to me on this radio show, both of us said to him on the TV set, and he was on set with us. And he's a lovely, charming man, and he is a Republican conservative from North Dakota. But he didn't have an answer. He didn't say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to forge ahead. I mean, that's the trouble. Republicans are sleeping. The Senate Republicans are sleeping. Some House Republicans are better. But really, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on this front. There's no pro-growth. We need a fat pro-growth reconciliation bill.
Yeah, and the president's got to take the lead on it. And to put a light of fire on Bethune, make it a top priority. And by the way, I wish they could come up with another word than reconciliation. Sounds like a marriage bill.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Get something that excites folks.
But it is, in effect, it's a way around the filibuster. So Schumer,
that's the key thing.
Schumer wants to stop everything, and Schumer wants to shut the government down. September 30th. I mean, yes. I mean, people have said that. Elected Republicans have said. There's no question about that. And it would be chaotic. I don't know who wins and who loses. Everyone loses probably.
But the key thing on that, Larry, is to have a narrative, knowing what they're going to do. So when it happens, people say, "There go," like when Reagan said, "There you go again. There they go again." They're blocking this big tax cut for you. They're blocking saving your from capital gains, phony capital gains on your home. So set the table for it. Set the narrative for it. So when they come, we're ready. Smash them.
John McLaughlin, your polling shows that people want more widespread congressional action.
Absolutely, because, I mean, I was inspired during the campaign when I was working for President Trump, and I still do, but when I was working for him, Steve's book about inflation, he gave the prescription to get out of inflation, economic growth. So we had a growth package, and then we expanded it to working class voters with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax credits for senior citizens. But there were real growth measures that you had written it. And this is what's missing, Larry, is you're not in the White House to get this done. But most voters that are going to decide their vote on Election Day this year, it's going to be about the economy. And the president needs to do something on economic growth every day. And when we ask the question, do they want a small reconciliation bill that only passes spending bills? 26% of the voters said that's what they want. But when we said a pro-growth reconciliation bill that cuts waste, fraud, and corruption and require proof of citizenship and voter ID and expands middle-class tax cuts, 57%. That's what the majority of voters want.
So why can't we get that? Why can't we get that?
Because they're inside the Potomac, and you and Steve aren't.
You know, when I was
tell them they're going to lose.
When I worked there, I used to every senior staff meeting. I mean, it was really I would like they'd be going through all these things that had to be done, and I'd sit on one of the couches in the back of the room and start yelling out growth, growth. I would do the same thing in the cabinet meetings. I sat behind the president to his right. Usually with John Bolton, by the way, we always sat next to each other, and I'd let him go on and talk about the agenda, and I'd start going growth, 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 and he'd look up. This is a true story. And Trump he was so great, so he wouldn't look back at me. He would just sit there and he goes, "That's the sound of money that I'm hearing," and I'd go growth, 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 and then people around the table would pick it up. But I don't think that spirit. You know, no. That spirit is, I think the Republicans have kind of forgotten it right now, Steve Forbes. You and I have never forgotten it. We go back 45, 50 years. But it's a winning, when we cut taxes, let's just focus on that. When the Republicans go for tax cuts, they win. When they don't, they lose. Honest to God, we could probably do a paper on this or a whole book.
And in this environment, this is what I don't understand about our friends in the Republican Party. It's their butts that are on the line in November.
Yeah.
Their jobs that are on the line in November. You'd think they'd be clutching to anything they can grab to try to go against the headwinds that are out there. And this would be a great way to do it, starting with no capital gains on home ownership, or at least to do it index it for inflation. Boy, that people would start to perk up on that one.
You know,
tens of millions of homeowners say, yeah. And by the way, couple it with if you have a 2 or 3% mortgage, you can carry it to your next house, so you get some real mobility, movement in the housing market, more movement.
I'd like to reopen the overtime and the tips and that stuff, the so-called working class. I like that a lot. And I think that those incentives are very important for the economy. But that tax relief, so you've had a 3 or 4 month bump up in, gasoline prices and other prices, and that shows up in affordability. Well, one way to, knock that down is give some tax relief, kitchen table tax relief.
And do it in a way, we have to take care of the top at some point because we love capital. But let's get wonky for 1 second before we get yanked off the air. But you take the 22 and 24% tax brackets, which really slam people in the blue states, and you propose to cut those down to 15. That takes away the whole deductibility thing. I know we raised it to 40,000, but boy, everyone would feel that, especially in blue states where we're trying to hang on to some seats they're trying to take away from us, and have the tables there.
Hang on a second. Let me
$2,000 savings for somebody in a suburb.
Let me take quick commercial break. I want to come back on this point and the utility of the top rate, which is very interesting. Hang on just 1 second. We got Steve Forbes, the great Steve Forbes, and John McLaughlin, ace pollster. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks host the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. Tonight at 7 p.m., it's soccer night, and kids glow around the bases postgame. Saturday at 6:30, it's Broadway night with postgame fireworks and Broadway rave. Sunday at 1:30, it's Military Appreciation Day, and the kids run around the bases.
A great day out for the entire family. Kids run the bases after every Sunday home game. Want the best seats all season? Get more Ferry Hawks for only $63. Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Yeah, and the question we're talking about is whether the GOP is asleep on taxes. Put more money in people's pockets, provide incentives for growth. We got John McLaughlin, whose polls say people would like pro-growth tax cuts, and the great Steve Forbes, chairman and editor of Forbes Media. Steve, I want to come back to this. We were talking on the TV show, I guess Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday, with Doug Holtz-Eakin and Summerlin, Mark Summerlin, two smart guys. So we were talking about the 1986 tax reform, and Bob Packwood passed away this week at age 93. So he was one of the key authors. But so you lower the rates and broaden the base, but people shouldn't forget unincorporated businesses. In other words, small businesses, farms, ranches, you name it. People that start up their own company, they all pay the top income tax rate. It's a very important rate. The GOP has lost this. We used to talk about this, right? So when you got that thing,
we pioneered it back in the 80s.
That's right. When you got that down to 28%, we were helping, 40% or so of the economic activity in this country comes from small, unincorporated business. And I may be low on that percentage, Steve. So that's really important, and we don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, well, what they call about non-C businesses, non-corporation businesses.
Right, wholly owned, that kind of, very important.
Partnerships and everything else.
Right.
And yes, the Democrats are going to hit us as friends of the oligarchs and pawns of the billionaires and all that kind of stuff, no matter what we do or don't do. Mm-hmm. So let's do it. Put it on the table. Say we're going to do it for everybody. Because everybody working together, America moves ahead, and we all benefit.
The top rate is 37, right?
37, and actually even higher when they throw in the fact you now have to pay Medicare on all your earnings now, and some other junk they put in there.
So it used to be 28. Reagan left it at 28. There's a big difference there. So you think
there is,
right? So I would say, John McLaughlin, you should poll on this. Honest to God, you should poll on it. Because I think this is dynamite. Again, you do it in the name of small businesses and unincorporated and farmers and ranch. Like the farmers always want more money. I would just give them lower tax rates.
Yep. No, Larry, I'm a subchapter S. My brother Jim and I love it.
I'm a subchapter. I'm an LLC. I pay the top rate.
And by the way, all these tax on millionaires that they're putting in all these crazy states.
Insanity.
They're going to kill 2/3 of small business employers in the United States are subchapter S. And they listen to the low IQ pollsters. Remember, Larry, you and I and Grover Norquist and others had to kill people around the president that were trying to have a millionaire's tax.
Oh, I know.
In his tax
I won't mention any names, but we did kill it. We did kill it.
I was waiting for the president's birthday to go by, and then he'll come back from the G7. And we got to go see him and tell him we need a pro-growth tax.
Actually, that's a good idea. You know what? That's a good idea. We should go down there and have lunch with him or something. We should bring Forbes with us, and we should absolutely do that, because we've lost the strength. We've lost the whole strain of that thinking, and it's an economic point, but it's a political point too. And it would shake a look. Here's the thing. I have some Steve Forbes. People are actually celebrating the first trillionaire, Elon Musk. It's all over the front pages today because of the successful SpaceX offering today. So that, and people don't like the lefties hate Elon Musk, but it's cool.
What people like, it wasn't from stock speculation or any of that kind of stuff. It was doing real things.
Yes.
Like having the best space program in the world, better than NASA, Russia, China, and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Americans love. He could be a zillionaire. Yeah. People say, go for it. You're doing real good stuff.
And wait a second, he's an immigrant. A legal immigrant.
Yes.
A legal immigrant is the first trillionaire. How great is America? All right. They're yelling at me to get off. Great stuff. I love Steve Forbes. This is so great. We're going to fight back on this stuff. John McLaughlin, get out there and pull your butt off. All right. And I'm Kudlow, folks. We're going to take a break. And on the other side, we're going to talk about the stock market. But that means we're going to talk about the SpaceX IPO, among other things. Please stick around. Much more coming.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?